Victor Mann pressed his calloused hand against the cold plasteel of the viewport, watching the swirling purple-green gases of the cloud drift past the passenger ship's star furrow. 20 years of farming hadn't prepared him for this. The weightlessness, the constant hum of recycled air, the way the stars disappeared behind veils of cosmic dust. Beautiful, isn't it? A steward appeared beside him, her magnetic boots clicking softly against the deck. Most passengers don't spend much time in the observation deck during cloud transit. Gets them nervous. Court interrupted their discussion. DXR is back online. They say it will go up for a flight in a week or two. Victor's reflection grimaced in the viewport. Spent my whole life looking up at the sky from solid ground. Never thought I'd be out here in the thick of it. He flexed his fingers, missing the familiar weight of soil beneath his nails. 3 days of space travel had yet to wash away 2 decades of dirt. The steward nodded sympathetically. First time through the cloud? First time off-world, Victor admitted. Wouldn't be here if we had a choice. But when the soil dies... He trailed off, remembering the twisted, blackened crops of his last harvest. Some kind of blight had swept through the entire southern continent of New Eden. Now, like hundreds of other farming families, they were headed to Redford 1 to start over. The steward opened her mouth to respond, but was cut off by a burst of static from her comm unit. She frowned, adjusting the frequency. "Excuse me. We've been having communication issues the past few hours. Cloud interference, you know?" Victor watched her hurry away, her earlier casual demeanor replaced by something more professional, more worried. He'd seen that same look on his neighbor's face right before the blight hit their fields. He made his way back to their cabin, his movement still awkward in the artificial gravity. Inside, Kelly and Rachel slept in their reclined acceleration chairs. His wife's hand rested protectively on their daughter's arm, even in sleep. Rachel's tablet had slipped from her grasp, star charts and diagrams of Redford 1 still glowing on the screen. At 15, she was adapting to space travel far better than her parents. A shudder ran through the deck plates beneath his feet. Victor steadied himself against the wall, counting the seconds until the vibration passed. The 4th such tremor in the past hour. The crew kept saying it was normal for cloud transit, but he'd grown up reading weather patterns and soil conditions. He knew the signs of trouble brewing. He settled into his chair, not sleeping but watching his family rest. Kelly's face was finally peaceful after months of worry. They'd sold everything, the farm, the equipment, even Kelly's mother's antique jewelry, to afford passage to Redford 1. Victor had no idea what they'd do once they arrived at the sprawling station, but Kelly had been right. Anything was better than watching their world slowly die. The ship's lighting dimmed unexpectedly, emergency strips along the floor casting everything in a pale blue glow. Then the captain's voice crackled over the intercom, tight with barely controlled panic. "All passengers, this is Captain O'Reilly. We are experiencing a..." The message cut off in a burst of static. Warning klaxons began to wail. Kelly's eyes snapped open, instantly alert. "Victor?" He was already moving to the cabin door. "Stay here. I'll find out what's..." The entire ship lurched violently to port. Metal screamed somewhere in the distance, and Victor heard something that sounded impossibly like cutting torches. Rachel sat up, clutching her tablet like a shield. "Dad?" Scratching. "It's gonna be okay," he said, but the words felt hollow as the klaxons grew louder. "Everything's gonna be..." The deck beneath them shuddered again, and this time Victor recognized the vibration for what it was. A docking clamp engaging. They weren't alone in the cloud anymore. The first pirate through the breach wasn't human. Victor stared in disbelief as an android stepped through the melted hole in the star furrow's hull. its chrome-plated body marked with centuries of wear. Purple-green gases from the clouds swirled around it before the emergency force fields snapped into place. Its optical sensors swept the corridor, burning red circles in the dimness. "Ancient tech," Rachel whispered, pressed against the cabin wall beside him. "Like the kind they sometimes find deep in the cloud?" Applegate whimpered, his eyes tracing over her phone. Rachel turned toward his call sign. The red flash flashed. "Deep in the cloud." "Quiet," Kelly hissed, pulling their daughter back from the door's small viewport. The android's head snapped toward their cabin with mechanical precision. Victor's breath caught as those red eyes fixed on their location. Then human figures emerged from the breach behind it. Pirates in sealed armor, carrying plasma rifles. One of them consulted a datapad. "Life signs in this section," a filtered voice announced. "Begin passenger collection. Remember the boss's orders. We need them alive for ransom." The android moved with liquid grace, covering the corridor as the pirates began forcing open cabin doors. Screams erupted from down the hall. Victor looked at his family, mind racing. They had seconds before P6. Their door exploded inward. The android filled the frame, its metal face eerily smooth except for a jagged gash across its left cheek plate. Behind it, a pirate leveled his rifle at them. "Out," the pirate ordered. "Now! Hands where we can see them." Victor stepped forward, putting himself between the weapons and his family. "We're just farmers," he said, raising his calloused hands. "We're no threat." The android's head tilted slightly, as if analyzing his words. Its voice emerged as ancient synthesized tones. "Biological analysis confirms. Agricultural worker. Muscle density suggests heavy manual labor. Threat assessment, minimal." The pirate laughed. "See? Even the ancients know you're harmless. Now move. Cargo holds waiting." They were herded into the corridor, joining other terrified passengers. Victor kept Kelly and Rachel close as they were marched through the ship. He counted 12 pirates, all heavily armed, and at least 4 androids. Through viewport glimpses, he could see the pirate vessel, a massive cargo hauler, modified with military-grade weapons. The cargo hold was already crowded when they arrived. Victor recognized faces from the observation deck, the dining hall, all wearing the same shocked expressions. Captain O'Reilly lay crumpled near the entrance, a plasma burn across her chest. 2 crew members knelt beside her, but Victor could tell from their defeated postures that she was gone. "Ladies and gentlemen," a tall figure strode through the prisoners. Unlike his crew, the pirate captain wore no helmet, revealing sharp features and cybernetic eyes that glowed the same red as the androids. "Welcome to the worst day of your lives. I'm Captain Reed, and you're now my cargo." An android stepped forward, its vocal synthesizer crackling. "Warning, crew members in engineering section still resisting." Reed's artificial eyes narrowed. "Deal with them. Permanently." X-rays sparked life as Reed glanced at the image. The android nodded and strode away. Moments later, distant screams echoed through the ship's corridors. "Now then," Reed continued, "here's how this works. We're going to contact Redford One's Merchant Council. They'll pay handsomely for your safe return. Behave, and you'll be home in a few days. Resist." He gestured toward the door where the screams had faded to silence. "Superhumans." Victor watched as a guard passed close to the huddled prisoners, carelessly swinging his rifle. The pirate's grip was loose, overconfident. 20 years of wrestling with malfunctioning harvester equipment had given Victor's strength few spacers could match. If he timed it right. Kelly caught his eye, recognizing his expression. She gave a slight nod, then whispered something to Rachel. His daughter's hand tightened on her tablet. Victor took a deep breath, forcing his muscles to relax. He'd spent his life coaxing life from dead soil. Now it was time to see if he could save lives instead. The door opened and Victor sat up. It was like crossing the finish line to his own section. He just had to wait for the right moment. Victor had broken 3 ribs last harvest when his automated harvester malfunctioned, pinning him against a silo wall. He'd still finished his work that day. As he watched the guard's 4th casual pass, he decided breaking a few more ribs wouldn't matter much if it meant keeping his family alive. The guard's boots scuffed the deck plates as he turned. Victor tensed, timing it just like he'd time a malfunctioning harvester's rotation. 1 second. 2. 3. Less than 5 minutes later, the guard's back was turned, and he'd finished taking off his underwear before the guard saw he was holding the pistol. But Victor had them both. Within 5 minutes, he floated into. He lunged, wrapping his thick forearms around the guard's legs. They crashed to the deck together. The guard's rifle clattered away, but Victor ignored it. He knew better than to reach for a weapon before neutralizing the threat. The guard's armored elbow caught him in the face, but Victor had been hit harder by falling equipment. He locked his hands around the guard's helmet and slammed it against the deck. Once, twice. The guard went limp. "Containment breach!" An android-synthesized voice cut through the shocked silence. Victor rolled, grabbing the fallen rifle. His first shot caught the android in its chest plate, barely scoring the ancient metal. But the cargo hold's emergency lights reflected off its optical sensors, and Victor remembered Rachel's endless chatter about ancient tech. Your basement defect." "Rachel," he shouted, "the lights." His daughter was already moving, her tablet interfacing with a cargo hold control panel. The emergency lights suddenly blazed at maximum intensity, focused directly at the android. Its optical sensors flared, trying to compensate, and Victor's second shot found the overloaded circuits. The android staggered, red eyes flickering. Chaos erupted. Kelly was rallying other passengers, directing them to take cover behind cargo containers. More pirates rushed in, but the confined space worked against them. They couldn't fire without risking their valuable cargo. Victor dove behind a container of fertilizer bags, an idea forming. "Cover your faces," he yelled, then fired into the fertilizer bags. Caustic chemicals filled the air, clogging the pirates' helmet filters. They staggered, cursing and clawing at their faceplates. Victor picked them off methodically, like culling diseased crops. "Dad," Rachel's voice cut through the chaos. "The androids, they're networked. If we can overload one's core processor—" "Which one?" Victor dropped another pirate with a shot to the knee. "The damaged one," she pointed to the android he'd shot, still struggling with its overloaded sensors. "Its firewalls are already compromised." Victor didn't understand the tech, but he understood taking out weak points. He concentrated his fire on the damaged android's head. Its armor was thick, but he'd once spent 14 hours straight cutting through bedrock to save his irrigation system. Persistence paid off. The android's head exploded in a shower of sparks. A high-pitched whine filled the cargo hold, and the remaining androids seized up, their red eyes flickering and dying. "Network cascade failure." Rachel's grin was fierce behind her tablet. "They're all linked to the same ancient control system." Victor allowed himself a moment's pride in his daughter's quick thinking, then focused on the remaining pirates. They were falling back, trying to reach the exit. He couldn't let them seal the cargo hold doors. "Anyone who can handle a weapon, grab one," he shouted. "Don't let them trap us in here." His voice was jagged with answers. He raised the cannon. To his surprise, several passengers responded immediately. A gray-haired woman who turned out to be an ex-Marine, a young miner with experience in ship security. They formed a ragged line, pushing forward while Kelly organized the others to fortify their position. Victor led the charge into the corridor, his farmer's stamina serving him well in the running combat that followed. They cleared the ship deck by deck, driving the pirates back toward their boarding point. Near the bridge, they found Captain Reed barricaded with his last 2 guards. "You really think you've won?" Reed laughed as Victor's group took cover from plasma fire. "This was never about ransom, you fool. Someone on Redford 1 paid us well to make sure this ship never arrived. The crew's dead. No one left knows how to navigate the cloud." Victor thought about his family, about all the other families fleeing their dying worlds hoping for a new start. He thought about 20 years of fighting unyielding Earth, of getting back up after every failed crop and broken bone. "We'll figure it out," he said, and charged the barricade. The fight was brutal but brief. When it ended, Victor stood in the wreckage of the bridge, blood running from a dozen cuts, surrounded by the bodies of Captain Reed and his guards. Through the viewport, he could see the swirling colors of the cloud, beautiful and deadly. Kelly's voice crackled over a salvaged comm unit. "Victor? Engineering secure. Rachel's trying to access the navigation computers, but—" "I know," he replied, sinking into the captain's chair. "We're lost in the cloud, but we're alive." He managed a grim smile. "And I've gotten us out of worse spots before." The ship's sensors chimed, indicating an approaching vessel. Victor raised his rifle, ready for another fight. The real question was, had help arrived, or had Reed called for backup? When you know, feeling that you can and should, you aren't. The approaching ship emerged from the purple-green swirls of the cloud like a ghost materializing from fog. Victor's finger tensed on the rifle's trigger as he studied its profile through the bridge viewport. It was smaller than the pirate vessel, sleeker, with none of the usual signs of outlaw modification. "Rachel," he called over the comm. "Can you get any readings?" said Rachel. "Can you get any readings?" "Working on it." His daughter's voice was strained with concentration. "Most of our systems are damaged, but... Wait. They're broadcasting an ident code. It's Redford 1 security." Gravelly voice crackled over the ship's comm. "Star Furrow, this is Commander Cobb Tuck of the Ross-Swift Justice. We're receiving your distress beacon. Please respond." Victor exchanged glances with Kelly, who had joined him on the bridge. She nodded encouragingly, but kept her salvaged plasma rifle ready. Finally, the man looked at Kelly, who had formed the 3 lines in a triangle. "Step toward the salvage." "This is Victor Mann aboard the Star Furrow," he responded. "Our crew is—" He swallowed hard. "Our crew is dead. We fought off pirates, but we're lost in the clouds. How did you find us?" "We Krieg have been mining the cloud's edges for generations," came the rumbling reply. "We know her patterns better than most. When you dropped off scanners, we deployed immediately." There was a pause. "Mr. Mann, our scans show significant damage to your vessel. Do you have wounded?" "Yes," Kelly answered. "Several passengers need medical attention, but—" She stepped closer to the comm. "How do we know we can trust you?" Terry shook his head. A sound like grinding rocks, a Krieg laugh, came over the channel. "Smart woman, transmitting verification codes now, plus—" The image of a stout, crystalline-skinned alien in a Redford 1 security uniform appeared on their least damaged screen. Cobtack's faceted eyes glinted as he held up a badge. "Full visual confirmation, and I'm guessing since you fought off pirates, you've got weapons. Keep them handy until you're satisfied we're legitimate." Rachel's voice cut in excitedly. "Dad, the codes match official Redford 1 protocols. I cross-referenced them with my downloaded station data." Over the next hour, Cobtack's crew carefully docked with the Star Furrow. Victor watched tensely as the first security officers, a mix of humans and aliens, boarded. But their professionalism and immediate attention to the wounded passengers soon put him at ease. A medical team began treating injuries, while engineering specialists assessed the ship's damage. "Quite a battle you fought here," Cobtac said later, standing with Victor among the deactivated androids. His crystalline form caught the emergency lights, sending rainbow refractions across the walls. Our tech team's going to want to study these. Ancient autonomous units are rare enough, but these have modifications we've never seen. Commander, a security officer interrupted, we found something in the pirate captain's personal data. Looks like they were hired by someone named Chorus Valencia. He's a commodities trader on Redford 1. Cobtac's crystalline features hardened. Valencia's been trying to corner the market on agricultural imports. Preventing refugee farmers from reaching the station would drive up his profits. He turned to Victor. We've been building a case against him for months. This might be what we need. What happens now? Victor asked, suddenly feeling the weight of every bruise and broken rib. Now? Now we get you and your people to Redford 1. Cobtac's faceted eyes glinted. Though I have a proposition for you, Mr. Man. We're always looking for people who can handle themselves in a crisis. The pay's good, and it comes with family quarters on the station. Victor shook his head firmly. I appreciate the offer, Commander, but I'm a farmer, not a fighter. What happened today, that was about survival, about protecting my family and others. I've seen enough violence to last a lifetime. He looked down at his calloused hands. I create things, help things grow. That's what I want to keep doing. Before Cobtac could respond, Rachel burst onto the bridge. Dad, you have to see this. She thrust her tablet forward, showing a news feed. They're calling you the Farmer of the Cloud on Redford 1's channels. The footage from the ship's security cameras already leaked. Kelly laughed at Victor's embarrassed expression. Well, you wanted a fresh start, she said, taking his hand. That I did, Victor agreed. Commander, I heard Redford 1 has hydroponic farms in its outer rings. Any chance you could point me towards someone who manages those? Cobtac's crystalline face shifted in what might have been a smile. I know just the person. They've been looking for someone with real soil experience to help expand their operations. 6 hours later, the Star Furrow's passengers watched through the Swift Justice's viewports as Redford 1 came into view. The massive station was a patchwork marvel of connected ships and structures, lights gleaming against the backdrop of the cloud. Victor stood with his family, his rifle turned over to the security team where it belonged. McClellan claimed it had been reloaded, but claimed it had been delivered without friction. He was still a farmer, first and always. Out here in the cloud, he'd protect his new home the best way he knew how, by helping things grow, by feeding people, by creating rather than destroying. The violence was over. It was time to plant new seeds. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. Feel free to comment and share this story too. It helps the channel grow. Let's make this channel huge together.